Hey, what's up? We need to get to the bottom of this, y'all. I came across this video and it had Clive Davis in connection with Angie Stone passing away. Now, I know so many people got so many things to say. First, they said Clyde has something to do with it. Then a lot of people say Clyde don't got nothing to do with it. It's from Angie Stone Inner Circle. I got this video. They talking about they got connection between Clive Davis and Angie. Paperwork, you understand? Federal stuff. I don't know if it's true or not, but I think we should look at it. The video, it had a whole bunch of people commenting and stuff. So I think, we should look at this. And I want to know what y'all think about this. We are at Messy Sweet Spot Reactions. Make sure you guys like, share, subscribe here. And let's see what's going on. I might stop and react. I might not, depending on how I feel. But what I do know, get them likes up, share, spread awareness, and make a comment so we can see your thoughts about this. Do you believe that's going on in the tabloids about Angie Stone or no? All right, so let's see here. Y'all ready?
Things are unfolding quickly in Angie Stone's case, and some newly leaked federal documents have exposed what Clive Davis allegedly did to Angie Stone after their last phone call. And trust me, this will send chills down your spine. People have long suspected Clive Davis of being involved in Angie Stone's demise, especially considering how he's handled other black artists who dared to speak out against the financial and business side of the music industry. But here's the real question. What exactly did Clive say to Angie before that concert, the one that ultimately led to her demise? And more importantly, is he currently under investigation? Let's break it all down.
I left Clive because, once again, I was the teacher bringing in all the students. I think I was rubbed the wrong way when I found out I didn't make the Oprah show because of my weight.
Angie Stone was an artist who gave so much to the music industry till she took her last breath. Yet despite all her contributions under Clive Davis, she knew he had been taking advantage of her, both emotionally and financially, for years. It wasn't until she finally mustered the courage to write him a letter requesting to be released that things took an unexpected turn. Given everything that was going on at the time, Angie expected resistance. But to her surprise, Clive Davis was more than willing to let her go. So easily, in fact, that it felt a little suspicious.
When I walked away, nobody really looked up. I just felt like I was kind of pushed out, if you know what I mean, because intuition is a mother.
Yep.
You feel me?
Angie could feel it in her bones. Something shady was happening behind the scenes, and she was being set up as the industry's scapegoat for the season. Her greatest strength, yet also her biggest weakness, was her kindness and naivete. And let's just say Angie was always willing to help, and it was in doing so that she had pulled some strings to get D'Angelo a spot under J Records, which was owned by Clive Davis, after he had been dropped by his previous label. But while she was busy looking out for him and others, she had no idea that a secret meeting had already taken place. One designed to slowly push her out, not with a dramatic fallout, but with just enough quiet frustration to make her leave on her own. According to Angie, D'Angelo's manager had struck a deal with J Records to cut her out completely, possibly because he had no idea that she was the one who helped D'Angelo land the deal in the first place. She later talked about the betrayal, saying, "I believe his manager at the time, not knowing the deal had come through me, basically made another deal. I'm thinking they made a deal that D'Angelo will come, but I will have to leave." It was a harsh reality check. And Angie found out that loyalty didn't always go both ways in the music industry. And slowly, Clive began putting his plan into motion, making sure Angie had no choice but to walk away from the label. First, her music budget was cut by a whopping sum of $500,000. Then, the body shaming began, so relentless that Angie eventually joined the Celebrity Fitness Club show just to shed some weight under the mounting pressure. But the final blow, the one that truly broke the camel's back, came when she was sidelined and told by Clive Davis to change the title of her album, Diary of a Soul Sister, simply because Alicia Keys had a project titled The Diary of Alicia Keys. What Angie didn't realize at the time was that this wasn't just a coincidence. It was all part of a carefully orchestrated plan to push her out early, making it easier for Clive and UMG to take control of her royalties, and eventually they did. Throughout Angie's career in the music industry, she worked like an elephant but received the reward of an ant, and it all started under Clive Davis like we've already seen. According to Angie, Clive had made her write some of the biggest hits for major artists, but she never received the recognition she deserved. In fact, her group, The Sequence, was responsible for writing some of Sugar Hill Gang's biggest hits, yet no one knew about it because Clive Davis had placed a gag order on her. She was silenced illegally, unable to speak out about the injustice, even as she was being exploited in the most ruthless and calculated way ever.
Well, we don't want to talk about all that stuff in Sugar Hill, so they kind of gag ordered me not to talk about.
So they want to see it's a brand new artist coming out.
Right.
Got you.
And because I'm a singer now and they want to focus on that. And I'm like, I don't have a telescope into the future, not knowing what it was going to be, how it was going to be. All I know is I'm in this game for somebody.
Right. Gotcha.
This pretty much explains why all Angie had known in the music industry was survival mode. I mean, despite earning millions over the decades, which was more than enough for an early retirement, Angie still continued touring, even up until days before her demise, just to keep food on her table. And here's the gag. Angie didn't realize the full extent of it all until much later, in November of 2023. As many of you already know, that's when she almost lost her life from a poisonous injection that could have been mistaken for pneumonia. It was only after this life-altering experience that Angie began connecting the dots in her finances and realized that her publishing, royalties, and mechanicals had all been stolen. But get this, one of the most devastating discoveries Angie made was that many of her songs hadn't even been properly registered.
People that were working on my behalf never even registered the songs, all the songs that I've done. I'm only coming to find out they were not properly registered by the companies that I signed over to.
And this wasn't some mere mistake by Clive and UMG. It was a deliberate act to rob her of her royalties, credits, and recognition, leaving her unable to track her sales and streams. With all the discoveries Angie made, she eventually began assembling a legal team, which she referred to as her Diesel team, to help her reclaim everything that rightfully belonged to her.
So you got to get a diesel crew, and I call them a diesel crew, to go in and rectify the issue.
Angie was gearing up for a battle, and with the way she boldly called out the industry, it was clear that some big names were starting to get nervous. I mean, Clive and UMG must have been surprised, wondering where Angie was getting all that boldness from, especially considering how many artists like Prince, Michael Jackson, and Phyllis Hyman had seen their careers and lives come to an abrupt end because they challenged the industry's financial structure. In Angie's case, a recording obtained from her cloud even revealed that she had confronted Clive Davis about her missing royalties just 3 days before she passed. That alone shows just how fed up Angie was with the industry. And let's not forget that this alleged phone call Angie made to Clive also raises serious questions about whether the accident was truly a coincidence. I mean, the timing speaks for itself. And a close friend of Angie's allegedly revealed that she contacted me that morning expressing concern for her safety. But from all we've seen so far, the industry has been working hard to convince the mainstream media that Angie's death was just another regular road accident. No wonder many celebrities have been oddly silent since Angie's passing. Even though it was clearly a case of foul play, no one is stepping up to demand justice. The only person in the industry who has been vocal about it is Paxton Stone, who was part of Angie's Diesel team.
When she speaks of the Diesel crew, she's talking about us, the West Coast crew. She talks about her team that has discovered things and has unveiled things for her.
According to Paxton Stone, Angie and her Diesel crew were already in the process of registering her songs when they discovered that several of her tracks were registered under the name of a person who was once close to Angie. It was at this point that Angie realized she had been dealing with enemies both within and beyond the industry, people who, for a long time, had pretended to be in her corner. After all these shocking revelations, the powers that be struck before Angie could fully blow the whistle. And by blowing the whistle, I don't just mean Angie calling out the industry on her live streams like she was doing. I'm talking about the fact that Angie was low-key planning to release a documentary about her life and everything she had endured in the industry. But it seems the industry caught wind of it because not only did they put a hit on Angie, but they also started sending death threats to the executive producer who was working with her to expose it all. And here's the wild part about Angie's departure that no one is talking about. The industry purposely hired a driver with a shady criminal record and made sure he took Interstate 65, which is regarded in a 2020 report as one of the deadliest highways in Alabama. And as you may already know, Lethal Carter, the driver who drove Angie Stone on that particular trip to Atlanta, wasn't even her regular driver. However, rumors circulating on the internet suggest that Lethal Carter wasn't exactly a stranger to Angie, as she had known him for a while. But in her defense, it seems she didn't know the full extent of his past dealings, nor the fact that he didn't even have an active driver's license, or worse, that he had been paid to take her out. See, reports even had it that Lethal Carter had been drinking heavily just before the drive in order to make Angie's demise look like a reckless road accident. And for a while, people were actually buying into the sketchy story until all the receipts began flowing out. Angie had trusted Lethal Carter so much that even when he suggested a plug to her for getting her songs registered, she went with it. But in the end, this so-called plug only succeeded in swindling her out of $15,000. And the worst part? She never even got a fraction of what she paid for.
We found out the songs were registered to that person's name. So remember, we got out of one situation trying to clean that up with the codes, and the guy never got all the codes, by the way, just to let y'all know. He never even got all those codes. She paid $15,000 and never got all of the codes that she wanted to get.
What Angie didn't know was that this amount of money wasn't even necessary to register her music in the first place. Now, I know y'all are probably thinking this should have been a clear sign to Angie to have been more careful with Lethal. But let's just say she was the kind of person who let her heart lead when dealing with people. And when you're a good person, people just tend to take advantage of you. Think about it. What if Angie had her doubts about Lethal Carter driving her, but she went with it probably because he sold her some sorry story about needing the money or something? Anyways, Angie's death has now been ruled as a homicide, and investigations are ongoing, and word on the street is that the passengers who were in the van with Angie are suing Lethal Carter for being reckless. But fans aren't satisfied with that alone, and many are now calling for an investigation into Clive Davis as well. I mean, the consistent pattern of black artists' deaths being linked to him is now beyond the realm of industry conspiracy theories. Just like Diddy, many have repeatedly pointed out that Clive is evil. However, it seems Diddy was just a small fry in comparison to him, and for those of you who don't know, Clive Davis was actually Diddy's mentor in the industry. This explains why Diddy was able to get away with so many atrocities for such a long time, until he started getting way too reckless, and Clive allegedly had to take away his protection. Now, the more you dig into this hot mess, the more the pattern becomes impossible to ignore. Just like those mysterious bathtub deaths and pneumonia-related fatalities, which always befell those who were closely connected to Diddy, it's almost the same way those under Clive were dying. I mean, just take a look at Brittany Murphy, for example. Rumors swirled that she knew far too much about Diddy and his business dealings, and in the end, she lost her life in one of the most unsettling ways imaginable. Then there's Kim Porter, who, just before her tragic death, was reportedly planning to release a tell-all book about her life with Diddy. And what about Aaron Carter? Much like Angie Stone, Aaron had made a video calling out the music industry for owing him an insane amount of money. On top of that, he also hinted that some powerful industry figures were trying to take him out, but everyone ignored him until he was eventually found lifeless. And the list of these artists continues to grow, each one with ties to Diddy or Clive Davis, and all of them mysteriously passing under suspicious circumstances. And have you noticed how the industry always tries to paint most of these deaths as suicides or mere accidents? Yeah, that's exactly why investigations into them are always rushed and quickly closed, leaving behind more questions than real answers. But this pattern can't simply be brushed aside anymore. Now, Diddy is behind bars, but whether Clive Davis will eventually face justice before his time runs out is a question that only time can answer. But I want to hear from all of you all about this entire situation. Do you think Angie Stone's last phone call to Clive Davis was somehow linked to her untimely demise? And was there something more to that conversation, or was it just a coincidence? And what about Angie's family? Do you think they will get the justice they deserve for their mother's tragic death anytime soon? Or will the system continue to sweep situations like this under the